there's been, of course, lots of criticism. My critics want to come out and dump on me, dump on the book. But, hey, that's life, right? I mean, that's part of it. And you've got to deal with that criticism, deal with that adversity. That's part of my job. And this is, again, to get back to my kids, something I hope that I can show my kids by example, and then, one day demonstrate to them as they get older, we're able to talk about it, that you're going to have critics in life. You're going to have adversity. You're going to have opponents. You can't control that, but you can control how you respond to it. And you are responsible for the choices you make and how you respond to those things. And it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to get stronger and to push forward. So that's what we're trying to do.
What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec Lace. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri. Senator Hawley's got a brand new book out titled The Tyranny of Big Tech. The link to the book is down there in the description below. While you're down there, tap that like, hit the subscribe button, and let's jump into it right now with Senator Josh Hawley on First Class Fatherhood. Joining me now, First Class Father, Senator Josh Hawley. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start right here. How many kids do you have, and how old are they?
I've got 3 kids. I've got 2 boys and a girl. My kids are 8, 6, and 6 months old. My girl is the youngest, and I am 41 now.
Wow, very cool. Are you all done now, or are you going to try to even the score?
It's up to my wife. I persuaded her on number 3. I said the other day, actually, our middle boy said the other day, said, "Mommy, when are we going to have another baby?" And she said, "Never." So maybe we're done.
Yeah, I got 4 myself. We had our 3 boys, then got the girl on the end. If not, we'd have 5 by now, but we got her, and she runs the show over here. So
there you go.
About how old were you then, Senator, when you first became a dad, and how did becoming a father kind of change your perspective on life?
Let's see. I was 32 when I became a dad, and it changed my life in a big way. I mean, I always say that getting married is definitely a game changer, but then having kids really completely, totally changes your life. I mean, because the kid then becomes everything that your life revolves around. And the early days, obviously, it literally, I mean, your sleep schedule, your eating schedule, everything revolves around the baby. But then I think for me, that in my case, my first child was the boy, begins to grow, you really begin to see the world through his eyes, and you start thinking about everything that you're doing out in the world about, well, how does this affect my son, and what will this mean for him, and what will the decisions I make now mean in the future? So it kind of, for me at least, and I think also for my wife, for us as a couple, really reoriented our view of the world and life.
Yeah, very well said. And I'm going to hit on some of what you just said in a second here. But your book is out now, The Tyranny of Big Tech. Obviously, a big problem that's going on here right now. Why did you decide to write the book, and what's been the feedback so far?
Well, my kids are a big part of it. The reason that I got interested in the tech issue is because of my children. When my first boy was born, when he was still pretty small, we were struggling, my wife and I, to figure out, well, what should we do in terms of technology? Do we let him have an iPad or mobile device, a tablet, or not? And initially we said yes, and then we watched kind of how he was interacting with it and how he was getting really attached to it. We thought, maybe this isn't such a great idea. Maybe we should learn more about this. So we went on this journey of trying to figure out, what is tech? How does it interact with kids? What's good for kids? We started talking to other families, and we really learned that tech can be, especially these social media platforms, can be really harmful to children, especially in large doses. It rewires their brains. There's an addictive element to social media, which is not happenstance. These companies have built their platforms to be addictive, and for children especially, that can be a really, really scary thing with negative consequences. So that's really what got me into this issue. And then I was Attorney General of the state of Missouri. I opened an antitrust investigation against Facebook and against Google, and that really propelled me forward. It's become something I really care about, and I think it's the tech monopolies and the effect that they have on our speech, on our politics, and on our families is really what this book is about.
Yeah, well said, Senator. I know you just spoke with, or you're going to speak with, Dinesh D'Souza. I had him on the podcast here as well, and he talks about how this influence is happening at all the universities across our country here. And it seems like the monopoly is going just in one direction, and it's so hard because if you want to get the good degree, you got to play by their rules. If you want to advertise, you got to be on big tech. So I don't see I never had social media until I started this podcast here. And if I want to promote it, I got to use their tools to do this. There's no other way to go. So how do we kind of navigate that? How do you go around big tech when we need them to promote the message that we're using?
Yeah, that's a serious problem. It's one I encounter every day, and I think people, I mean, pretty much every American does. When you have a monopoly, as these companies do, they really don't leave you any alternatives. I mean, social media to Facebook. Facebook has no peer competitor. Same thing with, of course, YouTube. Same thing with Google. Same thing with Instagram. And of course, Google owns YouTube and Facebook owns Instagram. So it's really, really consolidated. I mean, what I try to do is I try to live as much of my life off of these platforms and off of technology as I can. And for my family, what we decided with our kids is to try to live as much of our lives as a family off of these platforms and off of social media, to help our kids cultivate real relationships with other kids, to get together and actually play together, not just be chatting online together. And we try to do that with other families. It's been kind of cool to find other families who share a similar viewpoint and say, hey, let's try to raise our kids together and let's kind of band together and be a bulwark, if you like, against tech's a desire to colonize everything that they touch.
Yeah, very well said, Senator. And one thing I talk about on my podcast all the time is the fatherless crisis that we have going on in our country. I think it's having a devastating toll on our society. So many kids are growing up without a father in their life. And I think we're trying to solve all these other social issues. But unless we get to the core of this, I don't think anything is going to change. We got to tighten our nuclear family units here. And I think this every kid gets a trophy philosophy has been a colossal failure. And I think it brings nothing but just terrible results. And I think on both sides of the fence here, I think that if you're a good dad, you're not out there breaking windows at the Capitol. If you're a good dad, you're not out there burning down a car or vandalizing a store. And the same thing, I think that at the core of this issue, Senator, we have a fatherless problem going on in our country here. And I think if we tighten it, we can solve all these problems.
I agree with you 100%. I think that what we need in this country is we need for men to step up, be responsible, to actually be responsible husbands, responsible fathers. We need them to take responsibility for providing for their kids, for providing for their spouse. I mean, that would, as you just said, if that changed in this country, boy, this country would change in a big way and for the better. And the fatherhood is absolutely key to that. You see it in all the data. I mean, you see that what is it that is a predictor of a child's success? I mean, the presence of the father engaged in the home or not, the presence of the father in the child's life, engaged, being supportive, being there, being responsible, being that role model, it can make all the difference.
Yeah, and we're seeing it with all the stats, like you said there. I mean, teenage pregnancy, teenage suicide, teenage homelessness, it all directly correlates. I mean, if you show me a city that's got high numbers in that, you'll see a city that has high numbers in fatherless households. So it all correlates together. And then tapping into that with you, what would you say are some of the top values that you're hoping to instill in your kids growing up?
Well, I hope that number one, that they'll want to be responsible. I hope that they'll want to go out there and say, listen, I'm going to take responsibility for my life. I'm going to take responsibility for actually making good choices that will pave the way for the future. And I hope for my boys to think about them becoming husbands and fathers. I hope that they'll want to say, hey, I want to have a family. I want to start a family. I want to provide for that family. I'm going to take responsibility for my own decisions and think about how will this affect my wife? How will this affect my kids? I think a lot of the fatherlessness and the crisis of that we see is a lot of men, they just don't want to be responsible for anything. They want to say, I want to do what I want to do. And I don't really care how that affects anybody else. And I don't want to have the responsibility of ever actually having to think about, well, what will this do to my wife? What will this do to my children? So I hope that my boys will want to exercise that responsibility and will know the joy of that, by the way. But, with responsibility, it does, in a sense, it curtails your choices because you can't just do whatever the heck you want to do, what you want to do when you want to do it. But taking on that responsibility, being a father who is present, being a husband who is present and who is strong for his wife, that it opens up a whole new world of joy and fulfillment and meaning that you would never find otherwise.
Yeah, very well said, Senator. And obviously, being in the public spotlight like you are, I know that you've had, protesters show up at your house. What has been the reaction from your family? Has everyone ever, like your family, concerned to say, hey, maybe it's time to stop doing this? What has been the concern from your family and for yourself as a father as you keep putting yourself out there and standing your ground?
Well, the thing is, with what I worry about most with that kind of thing and the people coming to our house and all that sort of thing is really what is my kids. I mean, I worry about the effect on them because they are so young. I mean, again, my oldest is 8 and our newest is practically a newborn. She's 6 months old. So I worry about the effect on them. But, I mean, so far we've been very blessed. The kids have not encountered any of that. And my wife, I just have to give her tremendous credit. I mean, she's as tough as nails. And when we had protesters come to our house and try to shout her down, I wasn't there when they came to the house. It was at night. She was there alone with the baby. And, she went out and confronted them, said, get out of here. Josh isn't here, and so she has been extraordinarily strong, extraordinarily tough. And together, we've tried to put up, a shelter around our kids so that they can have a life where they feel, first of all, their home environment feels stable, where they feel like it's safe, and where they're just allowed to be kids, can have a normal life, go out and play some sports, chase some bugs. I mean, do some experiments, like have a fun time. I mean, that's what being a kid should be about. And I think because of her toughness and doing it together, we've been able to give that to my kids. But listen, that won't always be true. My kids, I know, will inevitably encounter just some of the divisiveness and the shouting and the rage that we see in our culture today. And I hope when that does happen, that'll be a moment where I can say to them, hey, this is part of what you encounter in life. As you grow up to be an adult, as you grow to be a man, as you grow to be a father, you're going to encounter adversity, you're going to encounter opposition, and you've got to make a choice about how you're going to respond to that and how you're going to push through that. And so I hope that will be an experience that ultimately, when it happens, will be a good one for them in that way.
Yeah, good stuff, Senator. And as you mentioned there too, I mean, this all seems to be one-sided. Like whenever I've had Secretary Pompeo on the show here, or I've had Eric Trump, I've gotten just destroyed on social media, and it never goes the other way. Like I never see that blowback when I have somebody from the other side on. And I try to bring people on, from all walks of life here, because I think one thing is that we're all connected as dads, no matter what side of the fence you're on, what religion or what race you are. As a dad, we all have this kind of understanding where each one of us is coming from. And obviously, with the book out there now, have you seen a lot of pushback? Have you been? Has it been taken down off any sites? I know you've said that you've been, whatever they call it, censored, which is a big thing going on now. Have you faced that and had trouble with that with the book so far?
Yeah, well, the book initially, the first publisher of the book tried to cancel it. So back in January, the publisher that actually signed me the contract to write the thing then tried to cancel it and keep it from being published. So that was a hurdle right out of the gate. But fortunately, I was able to find another publisher and bring this thing to publication. Now people can get it for themselves. And there's been, of course, lots of criticism. My critics want to come out and dump on me, dump on the book. But hey, that's life, right? I mean, that's part of it. And you've got to deal with that criticism, deal with that adversity. That's part of my job. And this is, again, to get back to my kids, something I hope that I can show my kids by example, and then one day demonstrate to them as they get older, we're able to talk about it, that you're going to have critics in life, you're going to have adversity, you're going to have opponents. You can't control that, but you can control how you respond to it. And you are responsible for the choices you make and how you respond to those things. And it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to get stronger and to push forward. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, great stuff. And then pulling it back into you as a dad here on that, what type of discipline? I know they're young yet, but what type of disciplinarian are you as a dad? Are you a spanker, timeout guy? And is that different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
No, my parents, I would say, were fairly strict disciplinarians. And I think of myself, I try to be, gentle with my kids in terms of I don't ever want to be overbearing. But we definitely believe in physical discipline where it's appropriate. We also, as the kids get older, we try to, I always think it's important the kids understand why it is they're being disciplined. So we often start with, I'll say, hey, I just told you to stop doing that. Do you understand why what you're doing is wrong? Do you understand why, like, we don't hit brother in the face, like, when we're angry? He takes your stuff and, like, you just go punch him. Do you understand, like, why that's not a good choice? Do you understand? And so we try to get them to develop that level of understanding. And then, what I aim for is I want my kids to be able to have self-control. I think that you can try to hem them in with rules and don't do this and don't do that. But ultimately, you want the kid to have a sense of internal direction where they say, I'm going to choose to discipline my own emotions, to discipline my own feelings, to find a healthy outlet. So what I try to do, and what my wife and I try to do together very imperfectly, is to try to give our kids a sense of, okay, self-control, where it's like, I don't have to fly off the handle. I don't have to lose it right here. I can learn how to discipline my own emotions, control my own emotions, and to find healthy outlets for that. So, we'll see.
Yeah, good stuff. And then obviously you said you got a 6-month-old. The quarantine has been, it brought a lot of havoc to everybody's lives here. Having a child during the pandemic, I would imagine, has to be a much different experience than your first two go-arounds. What was that kind of like? Were you able to go to the appointments? Were you in the delivery room? What was it like to have a child during this pandemic?
I was in the delivery room, which was awesome. I was able to do that, masked up and so forth. But hey, that's a small price to pay to be able to be there with my wife and to see my baby daughter born. And my wife was able to go to her appointments. I was not able to go with her. That was a change. I couldn't go to all of the appointments leading up to the delivery. I remember actually getting turned away at one of the early appointments at the hospital. I just hadn't thought about it. I'm going in, and they were like, whoa, where are you going? And I said, well, I'm here with my wife for the appointment. They're like, no, you're not. You're going to go back to the car, and she's going to go to the appointment. Well, we can't have too many people in the building. So, that is what it is. I think actually, though, in these first 6 months, we've been able to spend so much time together as a family, and that's been awesome. So we've done very little travel, and the baby really couldn't travel much anyway until now. So that's it. And I've been doing a lot less travel than usual because of COVID. So we've really been able to spend that time together as a family. I just tell you, having the 6-month-old with then 2 older kids, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, that has been tremendous fun, watching them react to the baby, watching them learn to become big brothers. It's been awesome.
Yeah, well, when we had our third, our other ones were 5 and 4, and that first year of having 3 kids felt like one long day. I mean, it was definitely the most challenging for us, going from 2 to 3, then 3 to 4 was kind of like a piece of cake, after that. So I know what that's about. And then what does your bedtime routine look like with your 6-month-old? Are you a book reader, a lullaby guy, a storyteller? How do you kind of work bedtime?
Well, with the older boys, what I do is that I usually, we have dinner together as a family, and then what I'll do is I'll take the kids upstairs, give my wife a break. They'll go up to their room. They'll take their bath, take the shower, get into bed, and then I read to them, and I read to both of the boys together. And it's always constant battle as to how long we're going to read. It's not really a battle because I give in every time. I'll say, all right, we're going to read for 15 minutes. We get to the end of that, and they'll be like, how about 5 more, Daddy? 5 more. So we'll do that. We might also then wrestle a little bit. My boys love to play these games like keep off the bed. So they'll try and push me off of the bed, and I'll try to keep them off. So we'll do that until my wife says, like, this is the opposite of bedtime. You're now getting them all riled up. So about the time I get called down, then we get them into bed, and we say our prayers together at night, and then that's it, and put them to bed. And then with my daughter, of course, a little bit different story at 6 months. That's she's in charge of the house, so she gets to sleep whenever she wants to sleep. We don't really have her on a strict schedule, but it's just I'll hold her and sing to her a little bit, and just tell her about my day. It's an incredible thing to hold that baby daughter and think that, man, her whole future. I can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, very cool. And I honestly here, Senator, I think the quarantine has been, the silver lining of it has been that a lot of families have had the time to spend together, whereas the dad or mom isn't constantly on the road. So I kind of pray that, that's strengthened our families right there. And maybe that could be like a little bit of the byproduct that's come out of this whole quarantine thing. I mean, the biggest part of our day is sitting down together as a family every night, praying together, eating dinner together. And it's usually my favorite part of the day. So I hope that that piece could be like the silver lining of the pandemic.
Me too. Yeah, me too. I know it's been big for our family. That's something we've really appreciated.
Well, what kind of goals or plans do you have here for yourself for the future? Obviously, you got the book out now. You're a senator down there in Missouri. What kind of goals or plans do you have for yourself for the future here?
Well, I just hope to be able to keep representing the people in my state, to keep doing the best job that I can possibly do. I say to my kids that, my job is to wake up every morning and is to go do my best, is to do it with a clear conscience. And I say to them, it's a tremendous privilege to get to serve. I hope that my boys and my daughter will want to grow up and to serve other people in some capacity, in any capacity. I think we're all called to do that. This is something I talk to my kids about literally every night, tell them to think about, listen, how can we think about serving others? How can we think about helping other people? So I want to try to keep doing that in my life, in the area where I'm called, but then also helping my kids grow up to embrace that ethic too, and to find that calling for their own lives. I just have to tell you that, for me, as I look forward, the things that really excite me is I'm excited about being a father, and I'm excited about seeing my kids grow, my boys and my daughter, about living each stage of life with them. And for me, the first and most important calling I have in life is as a husband and as a father, and everything else grows out of that.
Yeah, right on with that. And the last thing I'm going to hit you with here, Senator, I'd love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast here, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about-to-be father who's out there listening?
I would just say that there is no greater investment. There's no investment that is more worthwhile than in your child. And so just plan right now. Like you're going to have to say no to a whole bunch of stuff. Other things that you used to want to do that would take up your time. You're going to have to say no to those. You're going to have to make your child a priority, but it is worth it. It is worth it 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times over. So just embrace that. A child will completely upend your life. It will completely change your life, and that's awesome. It is all for the better. And I can just say, as the years go by, it just gets better and better and better and richer and richer. So I wish that blessing for every person who wants to be a parent and for every dad.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. The Tyranny of Big Tech, available now. Link is in the description of today's podcast episode. It's been an honor to have you on here. You're a first-class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you.